Lily and I recently celebrated our 12th anniversary, having been together since we were just 10 years old. Instead of going to college, I decided to jump into a career right out of high school, starting as an entry-level draftsman at Anderson & Company Engineering. A year later, we exchanged vows, and the following year, we were blessed with twin daughters, Hannah and Chloe. It wasn't easy at first, but with careful budgeting, we managed. Even though I stayed in my drafting job, I climbed the ranks a bit, which helped improve our finances. We were able to buy a modest house and drive 2 decent cars, not brand new, but certainly not outdated. Lily was thrilled to live out her dream of being a housewife, and thanks to our financial security, she didn't have to work. Health-wise, we were both doing well. Lily had grown a little since our wedding day, standing just over 5 feet tall with dark brown hair and bangs like a younger Dolly Parton. As for me, I hadn't changed much since my high school days as the right tackle on the football team. Jake Thompson moved to Reading from Lancaster about a year ago and joined Anderson & Company Engineering as a surveyor. We used to play football against each other, and we quickly became friends. He was also married to his high school sweetheart, a redhead named Emily. Emily and Lily hit it off right away, becoming fast friends. Although they didn't have kids yet, they were great with ours. When we weren't working, Jake and I enjoyed hanging out together. It was a nice break from family life. Lily and Emily did the same, spending time shopping, attending parties, and going to club meetings, while Jake and I entertained the girls with some TV. Emily took a job as a secretary at Harrison Industries, just outside the city. Around 6 months ago, I began noticing some changes. The PTA meeting, once a month before, was now held every week, and despite Emily not having kids, she was always visiting Lily. Tupperware and Magic Chef parties seemed to pop up more often, yet they never bought anything. They joined a book club but never had time to read. Their weekend shopping trips lasted hours, but they returned with barely anything. Lily's stash of fashionable lingerie kept growing, but I never got to enjoy it. It started to gnaw at me, but I didn't mention anything to Jake since he seemed unfazed. I didn't want to stir up trouble if nothing was going on. One evening, about an hour after putting the girls to bed, Lily came home from some sort of basket party. She had showered before Emily picked her up and took another as soon as she returned. That seemed odd to me. While she was in the shower, I quickly checked the basket and found a set of black lace lingerie. Who wears black lace lingerie to a basket party? I don't usually snoop through my wife's things, but tonight I did, and I discovered the underwear was damp and sticky. I slipped them into my pocket. Until tonight, I had never rummaged through Lily's purse or wallet. What really caught my interest was her cell phone. She must have been confident I wouldn't check, as she hadn't deleted a single call in the past week. Most of the calls were to Emily, but there were quite a few to and from someone listed as KC, KH, and KW. I had no clue who they were, but I quickly deduced that C stood for cell, H for home, and W probably for work. Checking her address book, I found Emily listed with 3 numbers, Emily S., Emily H., and Emily W. I was surprised at how organized my wife's phone was. Looking at Emily's work number, I noticed it had an extension. When I checked KW's number, it matched Emily's, just with a different extension. It wasn't hard to figure out Lily was calling and receiving calls from someone who worked with Emily. It was also clear Emily must have introduced Lily to this mysterious person, K, at Harrison Industries. I dialed KW's number from Lily's phone and reached Tom Davis' desk, where a recorded message stated he wasn't available, and asked for a name and number for a callback. I hung up after the beep, finding it all too easy. Lily poked her head around the doorway, asking if I was heading to bed. I told her I was finishing a book and would join her soon, mentioning I might fall asleep on the couch. Truth was, I intended to spend the night on the couch. I tossed and turned all night, trying to figure out what I might have done wrong or differently. It felt like a futile use of time and brain power. Whenever I tried to focus on what I should do next, my thoughts spiraled back to the same question. The clock seemed frozen. One thing was certain. I wasn't going to shoulder any blame for what had happened, or what might happen next. I awoke to the sounds of my 2 little angels attempting to make breakfast. Lily had encouraged them to be self-sufficient rather than wait for us. It was a good idea, and they seemed to be handling it well. As I stretched and scratched, my wife entered the room, reminding me I'd be late for work if I didn't hurry. I assured her it wasn't a problem because I wasn't going to work that day. When Lily asked why I wasn't going to work, I simply told her I had too many personal issues to deal with. Yawning, I made my way to the bathroom for a shower. When I returned, Lily seemed a bit puzzled since the girls had already left for school. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat across from her at the table. She looked at me with hesitation, as if she was expecting something, but unsure of what it might be. I directly asked her to tell me about her new book, suspecting she wouldn't be quick to share her thoughts. In response, she asked if my gloomy mood was because I suspected her of cheating. I admitted my concerns and urged her to talk about the book. Even after 12 years of marriage, she questioned why I would think such a thing. I insisted we focus on her book, mentioning I had work commitments for the day and no interest in playing games. Lily sighed with affection, leaning in to assure me there was no romance in her book. I sarcastically thanked her for the honesty, but said I wasn't in a place to appreciate it. She leaned back, sipping her coffee, as if she had regained control of the conversation. I then asked if she would answer a few simple questions, to which she agreed. I inquired why she attended PTA meetings every week when the PTA secretary told me they were only monthly and she hadn't been to one in 6 months. Lily looked confused and a bit less sassy, claiming she didn't understand what I was suggesting. I pointed out that she and Emily attended these non-existent PTA meetings every Tuesday and asked why she'd lie about that. Lily took a moment to think and eventually apologized, explaining that she and Emily went to Luna's Lounge for ladies' night on Tuesdays to enjoy 2-for-1 margaritas. They hadn't told us to avoid misunderstandings between Jake and me. She admitted it was a mistake and promised to keep us informed in the future. I remained skeptical, saying I would verify her story. I suggested Emily might back her up. But what about the staff at Rosie's? Lily insisted I was blowing things out of proportion. She turned the tables, questioning why I behaved oddly at Tupperware parties, like showering before leaving and again when I got home. I explained it was to get rid of the smoke smell from my hair, as many women smoked there. She kept probing, asking why I wore fancy underwear to those parties, but not for her, unless it was a special occasion. I admitted I didn't have a good answer, just that I liked feeling dressed up when going out. Lily's lies started to grate on me, and I struggled to keep my anger in check, realizing it was time to confront her. I showed her the soiled underwear I found last night, accusing her of lying. I told her I knew the substance wasn't mine and warned her not to blame it on a yeast infection. My anger boiled over, and I demanded an explanation. Lily squirmed in her seat, avoiding eye contact, unable to respond quickly. Frustrated, I pressed her further, insisting she explain why she came home with soiled underwear. She pleaded for me to stop, saying she couldn't take it anymore. Claiming we had been married for 12 years, she questioned how I could treat her like this. The endless lies and denial pushed me to my limit. With all the strength I could muster, I hurled my half-filled coffee cup across the room, smashing the front of the microwave. That got Lily's attention. She had never seen me so angry before. Leaning over the table, I loudly demanded to know about Tom Davis. She got up and moved toward the sink, trying to avoid the conversation, repeatedly saying he was just a friend. I pushed further, asking if she was close with him. In a terrified tone, she confessed. I pressed on, asking if she had slept with him last night. With remorse, she confirmed it, begging me to stop and apologizing sincerely. She stood at the sink, sobbing uncontrollably. After pouring myself fresh coffee, I heard Lily's cell phone ring. Her eyes darted nervously between me and the phone, suggesting I answer it, saying it was Tom calling. I hit the speakerphone button and greeted Tom, who sounded worried, mentioning he had tried calling my work number last night. Lily seemed frozen with fear, and I nodded at her. She hesitated to answer Tom's questions about her being there and if something was wrong, eventually admitting I was present and aware of their affair. I took over, telling Tom I had some things to handle in the morning, but would visit him in the afternoon. I suggested he keep emergency services on speed dial. Tom didn't hang up but stayed silent. Ending the call, I slipped the phone into my pocket. Lily, now in her robe, stood at the sink, trembling. As I prepared to leave, I asked one last question about the guy Emily was seeing. Lily begged me not to press the issue. In her distress, she threw a second cup across the room, shattering it against the tiled wall behind the sink. Hurriedly, she gave me the name Ethan James. She mentioned she'd be back later in the afternoon and told me to clear out my belongings before then. Her mom was going to stay with the girls for a while, and she assured me she'd help get anything I couldn't fit in the car. Lily told me not to contact her and to keep her mother informed about where I'd be. She stood motionless, watching me walk out the door. I didn't have a clue what my next move should be, so I decided to head to the office to see Billy. Being a friend, I thought he ought to know what was going on. It seemed pretty clear that Emily had met Ethan at work and introduced Lily to him, and Tom was likely a buddy of Ethan's who just needed a date. Maybe I was simplifying things a bit, but it felt about right. When I got to the office, Jake wasn't there. He was probably off doing some kind of betting or other business. I called him on his cell and broke the news about Lily and Emily having boyfriends, revealing that those supposed meetings and Tupperware parties were just social events. He found it hard to believe and questioned my sources. I suggested he ask Emily about a guy named Ethan Jamesk, who worked with her at Gilbert, suspecting she might have introduced Lily to someone from her workplace. Jake was stunned when he heard Ethan James's name, as they had graduated together. I also mentioned Tom Davis, describing him as a tall, skinny guy. I told Jake I figured Lily would warn Emily soon, given that she had fed me all sorts of excuses before finally coming clean. After our chat, I went to HR and requested some leave, knowing I couldn't concentrate on work. It only took about 10 minutes to hand off my duties to another draftsman. Meanwhile, Lily's cell phone rang, with Emily's name flashing on the caller ID. I answered, pretending to be Lily, and asked what was up. Emily, thinking she was talking to Lily, apologized and said that Jake had found out at the office. Furious, I demanded to know what she had told Billy. She admitted she planned to take Lily home and suggested not to disturb her right now, as she was busy packing her belongings. This caught me by surprise, so I asked why Lily was packing. Emily explained that Lily intended to move back with her parents temporarily. I savored the pause on the other end of the line, imagining the panic setting in for Emily. I advised her to warn Ethan about Billy's likely arrival, hinting that Ethan might appreciate a heads up. Emily reacted with shock and disbelief, yelling, "No, God, no!" before hanging up. What a nerve that woman had. Canceling our only credit card was straightforward. We also had a debit card, and I quickly changed the PIN. I wasn't sure how to handle the checking account, so I decided to leave it alone for now, needing it to pay bills, and hoping Lily hadn't taken any checks with her. My phone rang again. This time it was Billy. He'd chased Ethan James out of the Gilbert building and caught him in the parking lot. Now he was in jail and wanted me to contact his brother in Lancaster to bail him out. I called his brother, and with nothing more I could do for Billy, I went to Burger Shack for lunch. Afterward, I visited my parents and filled them in on the situation. My mom was more than willing to help watch the girls for a bit. She stayed with me during the week while the twins spent weekends with them. Now it was time to see Tom Davis. The guys in Gilbert's drafting department were eager to recount Billy's visit that morning. The drafting department overlooked the parking lot, and they witnessed everything. Jake caught Ethan just before he could reach his BMW, tossed him over the hood of a car, and started beating him up. Security tried unsuccessfully to pull Jake away until one of them finally zapped him with a stun gun in the neck. They had to take Ethan away in an ambulance. One of the guys showed me Tom Davis' office, but it was empty. Apparently, Tom had quit suddenly that morning. We walked past Emily's desk, which looked like she was still working there, though she wasn't around. Within 10 minutes, I had Tom's home address and headed to the parking lot. Tom's place was a small ranch without a garage. There was a white Lexus in the driveway, its trunk and back doors wide open. As I approached, Tom came out with an armful of clothes, dropped everything, and ran back inside when he saw me. I tripped over the clothes he dropped, but managed to catch a glimpse of him fleeing out the back. I couldn't help but laugh at his reaction. I wasn't like Billy. I was a decent guy. The place seemed like it was rented fully furnished, which explained why he didn't have a moving truck. In another 10 minutes, Tom would have been finished packing and out of town. I was eager to talk to him, but didn't feel like chasing him down. I looked around the room for anything interesting and found a few surprises. The first thing I picked up was his cell phone, lying on the table in the living room next to a folder containing his passport and some personal documents. A cute little laptop was on the dining table. Not finding much else, I gathered up my finds and left. I didn't want to do anything illegal, so I resisted the urge to crash his car. This was too good to be true. Taking things from the house might be considered a crime, but he left the door wide open, and anyone could have taken them. Unable to resist a little mischief, I let the air out of one of his tires. He'd have to empty the trunk to get the spare, and I was sure he'd be keeping an eye on the street for me. I planned to get it back later. He got the message. I headed to the jail to see Billy. His brother was with him, dealing with legal stuff, so I just waved and smiled. He seemed to have it all under control. By the time I got home, Mom had already started dinner. We chatted briefly, and then I brought the items I took from Tom into the office, where I kept my computer and belongings. Before I could look them over closely, Hannah and Chloe returned from school. I thought it was best to fill them in on what was happening before they started asking questions, but I didn't get the chance. Hannah eagerly greeted me, asking why Grandma was there and where Mom was. I explained that Mom and I decided to take a break from each other, and she'd be staying with her parents for a while. Chloe seemed pleased with the news, claiming victory in a bet with Hannah. She gloated about winning and explained that their argument revolved around Mom cheating on me. Hannah, however, denied ever mentioning anything about Mom cheating, saying they weren't naive and knew what was happening. She admitted that Chloe was right and that Mom was indeed cheating on me. She seemed surprised I had figured it out, criticizing me for being slow and too trusting. Chloe, in a rare show of empathy, put her hand on my shoulder, trying to comfort me. The whole scene was surreal, a 12-year-old girl trying to console her dad in the middle of a family crisis. One Saturday, when Mom and Emily claimed they were going shopping at Willow Creek Mall, Mom wouldn't let Chloe and me go with her. She said it was an adult shopping day and promised to make it up to us later. When we got to school on Monday, some kids said they saw her with a guy in Ravenwood Park. We called them liars, but one girl had a photo on her cell phone. It seemed minor. I thought there had to be an explanation, but Chloe insisted she was cheating. Why didn't you tell me anything? They both just shrugged. A couple of weeks later, Nancy Turner's parents saw Emily, Mom, and two guys at Bistro 22 in Elmwood. They told Nancy about it when they got home. I sat there dumbfounded. Thank God Grandma invited us to dinner. We didn't bring up the issue during dinner, and I apologized before dessert arrived. Thankfully, the twins decided to drop the subject for the rest of the night. I felt relieved. I had just started going through Tom's laptop when his cell phone received a text message. It read, Daxry 4, Sin Foley, J. Dear Tom, sorry for the trouble. Love, Lily. Though I'm not the best at texting, I quickly deciphered it. The message was sent from Emily's phone, meaning she and Lily were together. Temptation got the better of me, and I couldn't resist letting Lily know I had Tom's cell phone by spelling out TAJ. I spent the next couple of hours digging through files and folders on Tom's computer. Although I didn't find any emails between Lily and Tom, there were some intriguing ones between Tom and old friends in Lancaster. What I read was shocking, and I certainly didn't like it. Lily and I had been together for most of our lives, and now I realized I never truly knew her. In less than a year, she seemed closer to Tom than she had been with me in almost 20 years. As I replaced the cartridge in the printer, I felt tears streaming down my face. This wasn't like me. Her betrayal had hurt me, and now my tears felt like salt in the wounds. I printed several emails and a dozen photos. I would have printed more, but I ran out of expensive paper. None of the images were explicit or suggestive. All were suitable for mixed company. Hannah peeked in and asked if she could call her mother. I didn't feel I could refuse. My mother was with the twins while they talked to Lily, and she overheard everything. She wasn't eavesdropping, but it seemed the girls weren't trying to hide anything. Mom later told me they didn't hold back and blamed Lily for the whole mess. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes. The emails were fascinating. Tom had been hired for an alternative energy project in Spain, set to start in 6 weeks. He hadn't told Gilbert about leaving. I was sure Emily knew, but no one else mentioned it. He had everything ready for the trip except for a passport, which he could replace, but he'd better hurry to set his start date. He could always go to the police and report that I stole it, but I doubted he would. He hadn't even booked his plane tickets yet. One of the letters to a close friend explained a lot. Lily planned to get a divorce after joining Tom in Spain. She knew I would never allow her to take the girls out of the country, so she was planning to declare me an unfit father. The letter didn't explain how she intended to do this, but it suggested it would be severe enough to strip me of visitation rights or custody of the twins. It was utterly despicable. Tom had written this letter, so it was all hearsay. I would have preferred something directly from Lily, but I had to make do with what I had. I printed out several copies of the letter. Mom fell asleep watching Fallon, so I sent her to our bedroom. The girls had already gone to bed, I ended up crashing on the couch, with 4 empty beer bottles on the coffee table. I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and bacon. Mom always made a good breakfast. The girls were finishing their cereal when I came to the table. They teased me good-naturedly before I could start making the eggs. The conversation stayed casual until it was time for the bus. I felt it was important to talk to the girls, so I told them their mother might try to separate us by labeling me an unfit parent to keep custody of them. I made it clear I was open to shared custody for their happiness, but wouldn't give up my right to be with them. I urged them not to choose sides, but to be careful and not believe any lies. Chloe assured me they were smarter than I thought, and while they loved Mom, they wouldn't let her hurt me. She smiled, and Hannah gave me a thumbs up before they left. After they were gone, Mom refilled my coffee and sat down with me. She encouraged me to relax, reassuring me that everyone was on my side. After a shower and shave, I dressed a bit nicer than usual. Leaving the house with 3 cell phones felt odd, and I reminded myself to get a charger for the one Tom had. Though I probably wouldn't need it, I preferred being prepared. I checked in at the Family Services office and waited for the caseworker's call. When it came, I was surprised to see it was Kate Wilson, someone I hadn't seen in over 10 years. She greeted me with a comment about our shared past in high school. She was part of the goth crowd back then, the group that stuck together, especially when ostracized by jocks like me. Though she looked more conventional now, I couldn't forget her pink hair, black lipstick, and dark eye makeup. Her desk sign read J. Wilson, suggesting she probably hadn't married. "John, what can I do for you?" Her question interrupted my thoughts. I stumbled a bit and commented on her appearance, which made her chuckle at my awkwardness. I apologized if I'd embarrassed her, but she told me to relax. She explained that halfway through college, she realized she could face the world authentically without a false facade. Kate mentioned she'd been what I might call normal for almost a decade now, and felt much more comfortable this way. However, she admitted she could sound patronizing at times, and apologized for her tendency to put her foot in her mouth. Moving on, I asked Kate if there were any files or reports on me. She confirmed there was nothing under my name or Lily's, which indicated we were providing for our children rather than mistreating them. I mentioned having 12-year-old twin girls, Hannah and Chloe. Then shifting to the main issue, I explained that my wife planned to leave me and take the girls with her. Kate acknowledged this was common and asked if there was a specific reason for her actions. I pointed out that there were no supporting documents or accusations in their records, and expressed concern about potential setups. Kate explained that just because their computer showed nothing didn't mean I was in the clear. She suggested my wife might be gathering information, like medical records or police reports, before making a report to their office. When I expressed skepticism about being set up, Kate clarified that she wasn't saying I couldn't win. She asked why I thought my wife would take such actions. Though I was hesitant at first, I shared an email from Tom with her. I handed a copy across Kate's desk and explained how I got it through illegal access, recognizing its inadmissibility in court. I mentioned the word conspiracy without knowing its legal implications, and expressed confusion and concern about how to protect myself and my daughters in this situation, especially since I couldn't afford a lawyer. Kate Wilson relaxed in her chair while I held her gaze without blinking. She rocked back and forth before leaning forward and suggesting I come back the next morning. I agreed and asked if I could keep the copy of the letter. After receiving confirmation, I left, and she said goodbye, adding that it was nice to see me. I smiled back, catching a glimpse of a different side of Kate. Lacking any connections to lawyers, I resorted to selecting one from the phone book. Although I knew about Lily's plans for divorce, I wanted to make sure I was protected in this mess. Unsure about our financial situation, I paid the lawyer upfront in cash for the entire service. I asked him to push things through as quickly as possible, agreeing to let Lily keep the house since it was worth less than the mortgage. I insisted on joint custody of the twins, with the possibility of full custody if feasible, and agreed to pay child support, but not alimony. Jake called me on my way to lunch, needing a place to stay, and I offered to let him crash at my place. We met up at Burger Shack for lunch, and he had a grin plastered across his face. Curious, I asked him what was so amusing. He said a friend at Riverside Medical Center told him about Ethan's wife showing up, while Emily was visiting Ethan. The scene got chaotic, leading to Emily being escorted out by security. Jake had tried to talk to her at Gilbert, but she wasn't there anymore. When I asked Jake about Ethan's family situation, he shrugged, saying he didn't know why Ethan's wife didn't live with him or why he didn't go home to them on weekends. Frankly, he didn't care. Jake decided to take a week off work to sort things out, and we discussed how to manage with my mom already staying at my place. Jake planned to stop by his house to pick up some clothes and personal items, hoping Emily wasn't around. He was done talking to her. Later, while heading to see my insurance agent, I got a call from Daniel Porter, Lily's dad. He asked me to come over and help sort things out, mentioning Lily's distress and her mother's lack of support. The meeting would involve Daniel, Lily, her sister Megan, and me. I wasn't sure what they hoped to achieve, but I agreed to meet them in about 20 minutes. When I arrived, the mood was tense. I brought along a folder of evidence and skipped the coffee. Daniel started saying, "John, Lily thinks you're blowing this out of proportion. She claims you forced her to admit things she didn't mean just to calm you down. She insists she did nothing wrong and says you have no right to kick her out." I could tell she had spun a heavily exaggerated story for her parents. While I got why she didn't want to confess to cheating, blaming me was a low blow. Daniel wanted the facts straight to understand what was happening and asked what I expected him to do: prove she's lying or admit I made a mistake. I explained that Lily claimed she didn't have a boyfriend, just shared a few drinks with friends from Emily's workplace, interpreting it differently. I pointed out she had over 80 phone conversations with this friend in the last month and asked how often she called Daniel and her mom. They turned to Lily, who couldn't meet their eyes. I brought up Tom's cell phone and asked Megan to read a text message sent to Tom right after I asked Lily to leave. It apologized for the trouble and expressed love. Lily hid her face in her hands, and Daniel shook his head slowly. I shared photos from an outing Lily and Emily claimed was at the Willow Creek Mall, but was actually at Ravenwood Park. Daniel questioned Lily about the hand-holding in the photos, suggesting Tom was more than a friend. Tears began to fall as the truth unraveled. I showed more photos taken at Bella Cucina and Ocean Catch, mentioning the stains on Lily's underwear but choosing not to discuss them then. Daniel apologized for dragging me into this, expressed anger at being deceived, and shook my hand as I left. Lily left the room, sobbing like a child, and we didn't discuss the underwear stains at that moment. Daniel assured me they wouldn't sweep this under the rug. When I got home, Mom and Jake had already set up a fold-out bed in the living room, which was more of a small extra room where I kept my computer. Jake had a pile of clothes he'd grabbed from his place, as Emily wasn't there when he showed up. Among the mail, the most interesting item was for Lily, a sleek official envelope from the passport department. I knew I shouldn't open it, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside was a family passport, featuring Lily and the girls. I remembered the girls mentioning getting their picture taken, but never thought it was for this. My passport, of course, wasn't in the envelope. I immediately called Daniel and told him to let Lily know her passport had arrived. If she wanted it, Tom could come and pick it up. Normally, I'd be at work when the letter came, so I'd never have known she got it. Daniel told me they'd asked Lily to find somewhere else to stay and didn't know where she was headed. They seemed upset with her. He promised to inform her about the passport. Dinner mainly centered around the girls and how they were coping. Hannah, wearing a shy smile, mentioned that a woman from family services named Kate had visited their school and talked to both of them together. They missed gym and geography due to the long conversation. Hannah and Chloe shared that they felt Kate liked me, even though they only talked for an hour. Our dinner was interrupted by a phone call from Megan, Lily's sister, who wanted to talk. We met at McDonald's, where she explained Lily's situation. Megan doubted my ability to answer questions, and I agreed with her. She started by blaming Emily for everything, saying that Emily's affair with Jake seemed thrilling and romantic to Lily. Lily claimed her life with me was loving and reliable, but lacked excitement and romance. Lily got involved with Tom Davis after he joined Gilbert. While Emily and Ethan were having their moments, Lily and Tom were left alone, which led to a full-blown affair. She couldn't or wouldn't end it, as Tom captivated her with tales of his adventures and proposed a trip to Spain, which she eagerly accepted. Lily's main dilemma wasn't leaving me, but leaving the girls. She knew I'd never allow her to take them abroad, so she was trying to find a way to make me look bad. Megan explained that after talking with the girls, Lily realized they were closer to me than her. As a result, she decided not to pursue custody if I agreed to a divorce without any conditions. I agreed to proceed without contesting it. Megan then mentioned that Lily would like to get her passport and asked if I had it with me. This raised my suspicions about Lily's intentions, and I suspected she still hoped to take the girls with her. The family passport was crucial to the deal. "Megan, my coffee is cold. I'm going home to take a hot shower. Don't call me anymore," I said abruptly. "John, what's wrong? Why are you upset?" Megan asked. "You know exactly why. Do you two really think I'm that stupid? Go back to your sister and tell her she's not getting my daughters. Since you're helping her, I'm asking you never to talk to my girls again." Megan was on her phone as I left McDonald's. I could only guess who she was calling. I arrived at the family services office before it opened. Kate walked in with a big smile and a Café Noir cup in hand. "You couldn't stay away, could you?" she teased, motioning for me to sit and apologizing for not having extra coffee. "I heard you talk to my daughters yesterday," I said, nodding and smiling, feeling a bit tongue-tied and out of my element. "Is something wrong, John?" "Apart from everything? No," I replied, not trying to be clever, just unable to find the words. "Sorry, Kate. I think I should go. I'm not up for this today. I'll call you later. Before you leave, I want you to know I'm getting a restraining order against your wife. I can't stop her from seeing the girls, but I can prevent her from taking them out of state or denying you access. It'll be served before noon." That news brought a big smile to my face, but I left the office anyway, heading to the nearest Café Noir. The coffee smelled amazing. Until now, I'd felt in control, but suddenly I was overwhelmed and confused. I drove around aimlessly before heading home. Jake informed me that Emily had moved to her parents' house near Ephrata, so he was only returning to his place until he could sell or rent it out. He spent the morning at the bank, insurance company, and law office, hoping to secure some money from Gilbert. Unfortunately, without a company policy against fraternization, his efforts were an uphill battle, as his lawyer explained. Passing by the hospital, he discovered Ethan was being discharged. Ethan's wife, completing her discharge paperwork, intercepted Billy, thanking him for his help and explaining her attempt to persuade Ethan to drop the charges. Surprisingly, she had been trying to mend things with Ethan for years without success. After Jake left, I sat on the porch with a beer. Mom brought me a meatloaf sandwich and joined me silently, sharing the beer. She mentioned Dad would come for dinner and stay the night. When Kate Wilson arrived, Mom retreated inside. Kate sat beside me, declining the cold beer I offered. We sat in silence before she spoke. "I served Lily's papers about an hour ago. She was quite upset, staying with her sister now." I finished the long neck I was holding. "It sounds good, but why do I feel so bad?" "In these situations, nothing is good, John. Just less bad." I pulled out another beer, hesitated, and put it back in the fridge. "Could you come in and explain this to the girls? I get along with them, but no matter how I say it, it might sound like I'm blaming their mother, and I'm afraid it could push them away." "How about 7 tonight?" she offered. I nodded and she stood up, walking to her car. Halfway there, she looked back, a positive sign, and I smiled. She smiled back. Kate visited that evening and spent considerable time with Hannah and Chloe. Meanwhile, Jake and I busied ourselves sorting through his house, removing anything that belonged to or reminded him of Emily. Kate began visiting our home frequently, spending as much time with my mom as with the girls, and I noticed she avoided me. Though this suited me, I was curious about why. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, she sat beside me on the couch. I had been meaning to talk to her, but she broke the silence first. She asked if I had any wine with a cork. I chuckled, telling her I only had screw-cap wine. She laughed and asked for something red, so I poured us both a glass. As we sipped, I gathered the nerve to ask about how the girls were doing during her visits. She reassured me that they were doing well and didn't really need to see her. To my surprise, she confessed she was visiting to see me, not the girls. I was taken aback, considering she hadn't been very conversational during her visits. She admitted she thought I might have a rule against getting involved with clients, which we both found funny. To lighten the mood, she brought up tattoos, expressing surprise that I hadn't asked to see hers. I confessed to having 4 tattoos from my high school days, 3 visible and 1 hidden. She playfully suggested a game to find them, keeping quiet to avoid waking the girls. The 4th tattoo was in a more discreet spot, and I admired her for a while before she left, likely before the twins woke up. Still, I suspected they knew what had happened. I told my lawyer to finalize and serve the divorce papers. Lily, who was still living with Megan, received them, but didn't respond. Several weeks went by, and my father's health began to deteriorate. Mom spent most of her time with him. Fortunately, school ended, and the girls spent their summer with her. By the end of summer, Dad had moved to a nursing home. Jake and I helped Mom prepare the family home for sale, and she moved back in with me. Kate visited the girls at their mother's all summer and spent several evenings a week with me. They went shopping and out to dinner, and I appreciated the attention Chloe and Hannah were getting. At least I didn't envy them anymore. I was sure they knew what was happening between Kate and me. Lily called the girls once a week, but the conversations were brief and tense, according to their grandmother. The twins didn't even tell me when she called. Billy's divorce from Emily was finalized, but I wasn't sure about my status. He decided to start his own surveying business and invited me to join him. I didn't have the funds to invest until my mom stepped in to help. When she and Dad ran out of money, Medicare covered his expenses. Instead of letting it all disappear, she thought I should use it for the business, seeing it as an investment in her future too. 3 months later, Jake and I had a small surveying business up and running. My drafting skills had evolved into creating storyboards, which was fortunate. About a week into the new semester, the twins were visited by their mother. They thought they'd be meeting with Kate in the guidance office, so they were surprised to see Lily. They tried their best to be polite but struggled. Lily told them she loved them, apologized for how things turned out, and mentioned she was going to Spain to see the windmills. She promised to send postcards and call them on their birthdays and send great Christmas gifts. They said she cried when she left. Lily never called to tell me she was leaving, but her parents visited the house the following week. They apologized again for what Lily had done, but didn't try to justify her actions. Chloe and Hannah were their only grandchildren, and they wanted to remain a part of their lives. I had no objection. They explained that Megan felt too ashamed to approach me, caught between her sister and parents. 2 months later, my divorce was finalized. Kate and I celebrated at a cozy restaurant, enjoying a rare evening without the girls, who seemed content and even relieved. We spent the night at a nearby inn. The twins greeted me warmly the next morning, their smiles showing their happiness. A year later, things were going well, though my father had passed away. Mom thought about moving to Florida to be with her sister, but hesitated to leave the girls. The twins felt Grandma should go and suggested Kate move in with us, even if she couldn't cook as well as Mom. They also insisted they were old enough for separate rooms. It was a clear and sensible plan. The girls received birthday cards from their mother, but no phone calls. She sent postcards, all featuring Spanish windmills. I didn't know what that was supposed to mean. For Christmas, she sent them stylish dresses, unaware they were growing fast. Surprisingly, the girls didn't mind the dresses being too small. Harrison Industries became our major client, and Jake was pleased to hear that Ethan was now teaching electronics at a vocational school, a significant step down. Ethan was no longer married, and Emily had remarried and moved to California. Tom Davis didn't last long at his new job and was back in the States, but his whereabouts remained unknown. Jake sought information through his high school alumni network, always feeling I had let Tom off too easily. Strangely, the girls continued to receive postcards of windmills, with no specific messages, just general sentiments. Daniel informed me that Lily called them occasionally from her job at a travel agency in Barcelona. She never mentioned Tom or talked about their past. Kate and I quietly married in Maryland. A year later, she was expecting, and Chloe and Hannah were as thrilled as we were. They joked about having a goth sister, sharing a private joke they never let me in on. The meaning of the Spanish windmills remained a mystery to me.